So if you're someone that actually follows my channel, you'll know that in my last video, I promised a video about the DC animated movie universe. And I did start working on a script for that one, but then my laptop broke, and I never saved the document to an external hard drive. So now that I have a new computer, I can't really access that document, now can I? So instead of talking about that and just starting over from scratch, I'd really rather just talk about something different. So let's talk about wrestling. I just got into wrestling this past year. I literally started watching wrestling back in February when I was working on my Best of the Year video. But with WWE's SummerSlam just on the horizon, I thought I'd take some time to talk about the women's matches from the post-Divas era. Now you might be wondering, why the women's matches? Because they're fucking awesome, and Asuka versus Sasha Banks is one of the matches I'm most excited for. But you might also be wondering, okay, but why just after the Divas era? Well, because I don't have access to every single women's match ever, because the WWE Network is only offering the SummerSlam matches from 2007 on for free right now. And honestly, with the Divas era, there just isn't that much to talk about. In 2008, you had a 5-minute mixed tag match with Santino Marella and Beth Phoenix for the Divas title and the Intercontinental title. And then the next year, you had a dark match for a number one contendership to the Divas title, meaning it wasn't shown on pay-per-view, and Wikipedia itself does not have the actual timestamp listed. Then you had nothing in 2010, just under 7 minutes in 2011, more nothing in 2012, and just over 5 minutes in 2013, but then we started to hear the winds of change in 2014 with an 11-minute and 6-second match, a 15-minute and 20-second match in 2015. But with the creation of the new women's title, later rebranded as the Raw Women's title, we had a 14-minute title match and an 11-minute 6-woman tag match in just 2016. Then we had an 11 and 13-minute title match in 2017, a 15-minute match for the SmackDown title with a huge character change for Becky Lynch. And while Ronda versus Alexa only went 4 minutes, the difference here is that was a squash. The entire point was it's short on purpose. When the Divas matches were short, it was an indication of really how much the powers that be in WWE really valued that title and how much they valued women's wrestling. And then this past year, you had a 12.5-minute match for the Raw title, a 10-minute match for the SmackDown title, and an epic 17-minute match between a made woman and an old veteran. This is the kind of time they give to the men's matches, and it's being given to the women's matches. This is an important distinction, and that distinction is made clear with a combined total of 43 minutes across 8 pay-per-views versus a combined 107 minutes for 4 pay-per-views. The matches of the Divas era and the matches before it even, they were often good, but they weren't often given the same priority that they are now. And that's just what progress is. As time moves on, we grow and we learn to prioritize, and we come to appreciate things like, oh hey, chicks dig wrestling too. Oh, and even guys like girls wrestling. Huh. Cool. So, with that all out of the way, take it away, Mr. Cumberbatch.
Now, shall we begin?
Number 9. Alexa Bliss versus Sasha Banks for the Raw Women's Championship, SummerSlam 2017. This was the first match for the Raw Women's title when it was actually called the Raw Women's title. It had previously been defended between Sasha and Charlotte Flair the year before when WWE hadn't yet installed the brand split, making the WWE Raw Women's Championship just the WWE Women's Championship. So, did Sasha and Alexa do Raw proud? Well, Well, it was a perfectly fine match with lots of great heel work from Alexa, but without any especially memorable spots, aside from Alexa at one point pulling at the ring apron while Sasha was walking outside the ropes, causing her to fall onto the floor, and nearly get counted out before slipping back into the ring just in time, and putting Alexa into the bank statement, forcing Alexa to tap out. So a really good ending to an okay match, making it not bad, but just not as cool as some of the other matches we'll end up seeing here. Number 8. Naomi versus Natalya for the SmackDown Women's Championship, SummerSlam 2017. Naomi and Natalya are undeniably two of the best workers in WWE. And these women have more than paid their dues, having been in the company for well over a decade at the time of this video's release. But man, oh man, is this an average feeling match? Again, it's not bad, it's just that it's good instead of being great, which is really the most annoying thing in the world. The match starts with a heel Natty slapping Naomi right after the bell, and immediately wailing on her in the corner before the ref pulls them apart, and Naomi begins to rally her offense. There's lots of back and forth between the Canuck and the Floridian, with Naomi eventually going for a moonsault, but instead gets a face full of the bottom turnbuckle. Natty then goes for a second sharpshooter, leading to a tap out from Naomi, making Natalya the new champion. A pretty good match that's well worth your time, with several good spots, but it's marred slightly by probably the wrong result given how over Naomi was and the fact that Natalya just isn't up to snuff as a heel.
Champion's advantage here tonight. Watch this one more. Carmella can...
You just feel so tempted to make a Karen joke. Number 7. Bayley versus Ember Moon for the SmackDown Women's Championship, SummerSlam 2019. I miss Hugger Bayley. Bayley is a genuinely terrific heel, but I'll always love Hugger Bayley. Anyway, the match starts with a straightforward grappling contest before Ember starts connecting with some kicks and forearm strikes, concluding with a pin attempt that Bayley kicks out of. These two go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth for a good long while before Ember eventually runs up to the top rope for possibly a moonsault or something else, but Bayley grabs her, delivers a belly-to-belly suplex from the top, and gets the pin. This match had stupendous work from both ladies, but again, it was nothing mind-blowing. Number 6. Alexa Bliss versus Ronda Rousey for the Raw Women's Championship, SummerSlam 2018. Alexa Bliss started this match doing the smartest thing anyone in WWE has ever done. She noped right out of her own title match with Ronda Rousey. Ronda, in turn, does the smartest thing she could possibly do in a title match with Alexa. She literally turns her back on the woman and closes her eyes and lures her in, and then forces her to tap out with an armbar. It's short, but it's funny, which makes it oh so sweet. And honestly, I just plain adore Alexa Bliss as a heel. Her reactions to literally everything make this match. And actually, between this and her recent interaction with Bray Wyatt, Alexa should really consider going into acting. She'd be pretty good at it. Number 5. Sasha Banks versus Charlotte Flair for the, parenthesis, Raw, and parenthesis, Women's Championship, SummerSlam 2016. This was actually the last pay-per-view where the Raw Women's Championship was defended as just the Women's Championship. Well, the brand split had actually resumed on July 19th of 2016. The belt was still defended by Charlotte and Sasha on both brands until literally 2 days after this event when the SmackDown title was unveiled. Anyway, the match starts with Charlotte controlling Sasha with her greater strength, but Sasha counters with her superior technique. Charlotte tries to turn the tide with a roll-up, the figure 4, or one of the legendary Flair chops, but Sasha counters just about everything and starts lighting up the Queen with a chop of her own. The two horsewomen continually match each other tit for tat. Charlotte would gain an inch of ground, and then Sasha would take that inch right back, and vice versa. At a certain point, the match just turns into Sasha throwing everything she has at Charlotte, and Charlotte just soaking it up like a sponge. When the tide finally turns in Sasha's favor, you can see the desperation Charlotte has to win her title back. Like she doesn't know who she is without a championship belt.
Sasha away. Sasha knew. Sasha knew coming into this match how much she needed to prove that she deserves to be women's champion.
And Sasha is loath to give one single fuck and puts Charlotte into a bang statement, which the Queen then leverages into a pin, which gives the boss the 1-2-3, ending the match in probably the most satisfyingly unsatisfying manner. Number 4. Naomi, Becky Lynch, and Carmella versus Natalya, Alexa Bliss, and Nikki Bella, a 6-woman tag match from SummerSlam 2016. This match starts with Alexa going head-to-head with Becky, and the two of them just showing off how over they were after such a short time on the main roster. Before we switch over to Naomi versus Natalya, who immediately give you a feel for the history between the two of them. They know each other all too well. The two of them go back and forth until Naomi decides to tag in Carmella, who acquits herself rather well against a veteran, but is then systemically demolished when Nikki is tagged in, who proceeds to unleash punishment. Pure, absolute punishment upon the Staten Island native until she finally decides to tag Alexa back in so that she can punish her. And she does so with all 5 feet of her fury, before deciding that Natty deserves another turn at bullying the Fabulous One until Carmella can finally escape and tag Becky back in, who immediately goes to work on the Queen of Hearts. It's so bad that Alexa and Nikki sneak in to try and help their friend, only for the Irish lass kicker to give each and every one of them their own personal sidekick to the shoulder. Becky quickly gets the pin on Miss Neidhart, only for the former Mrs. John Cena to break it up. Natty and Becky then tag out in favor of Alexa Bliss and Naomi, respectively. And Alexa quickly discovers the only way to counter Naomi's incredible athleticism is to just be a jerk, which Naomi responds to with the turnabout because it's fair play, leading Alexa to tag in Nikki. Naomi then tags Carmella in, who quickly proves that she can hang with the 3-time champion, but Nikki soon proves that just because you can hang doesn't mean you can win. One right hand and a cutter later, and Nikki pins Carmella to win the match, with the absolute best moment coming from when Nikki looks directly into the camera and says, before dropping Carmella. That's the kind of energy I love from a heel. In fact, much of Nikki's heel work here is absolutely marvelous. At one point, she tries to get a pin on Carmella, but Carmella kicks out. So while Carmella lays on the mat trying to recover, Nikki literally starts doing some fucking push-ups right next to her. It's the funniest damn thing, and it's absolutely wonderful. Number 3, Carmella versus Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's Championship, SummerSlam 2018. This match ended with the birth of Becky's The Man character, which I love, but what I hate is that we really didn't need Becky to become the Man. You could have just given us Becky versus Carmella, no fuss, no muss, instead of Becky versus Charlotte versus Carmella. If y'all wanted to put Charlotte over as a face, you could have had her lose her non-title match against Carmella and then have Becky beat Carmella clean and have her celebrate with her BFF in the ring. Then the next week on SmackDown, you can have Charlotte say, you know, I didn't think you could do it. You proved me wrong. You proved everyone, Beck. Congratulations. Having Becky blow up after her so-called best friend tried to defend her honor by inserting herself into her moment and then actually stealing said moment from her doesn't make Becky a heel, and it doesn't make Charlotte more sympathetic. This is some Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 9 logic here, man. Come the fuck on, Vince. All the same, though, this really was a terrific match. The match started with Becky and Charlotte's classic tea time routine, but they're interrupted by Carmella, who immediately goes on the attack and slowly drives a wedge between the two best friends until spending more time attacking each other instead of her, until she arrogantly makes her presence known, which is proven to be a big mistake when Charlotte counters her attempt at a Hurricane Rana by turning it into a Boston Crab and then a figure four leg lock, which Becky interrupts, leading to the two best friends to turn on each other once again until Charlotte gets a pin on Becky and Carmella has to save her title. This eventually turns into Becky giving Carmella to disarm her until Charlotte waltzes in, or as the champion is about to tap out, and finally getting the 1-2-3 on her so-called best friend, which leads into the explosion of Becky and Charlotte's friendship. A great match all around that did lead into Becky becoming the biggest star in WWE and the first woman to win the main event of WrestleMania, all because Charlotte had to go and be a selfish bitch. Thanks, Charlotte! Number 2, Becky Lynch vs. Natalya for the Raw Women's Championship, SummerSlam 2019. When I first heard this was going to be a submission match, I just thought,
Yes! Come to Papa!
You can tell right out of the gate that Becky, as The Miz would say, came to play. Before even pulling out the disarm her, Becky goes for a triangle hold and leg lock before eventually going for a fucking sharpshooter. She's putting Bret Hart's niece into a fucking sharpshooter in fucking Toronto, and the Canadian crowd is eating this shit up. Natalya, however, wouldn't take that lying down and gives Becky the disarm her before transitioning into her own sharpshooter, which Becky switches to her own submission move, forcing Old Natty to tap out. And again, this was in Toronto, in fucking Ontario, in fucking Canada, to an array of cheers for the Irish woman who just whooped the candy ass of the niece of Bret Hart, of the daughter of Jim Neidhart, because it is physically impossible to boo Becky Lynch. Oh, and here's a fun fact. This and Bayley vs. Ember were actually the first time the women's championships were retained at SummerSlam. Every other match before this, the belt had changed hands. Number 1, Charlotte Flair vs. Trish Stratus, SummerSlam 2019. This match starts with Charlotte tossing Trish into a corner and gloating like she always does when Trish retaliates and quickly forces Charlotte into a corner. And suddenly, Charlotte goes from laughing about how easily she'll beat this old-timer to suddenly realizing, oh fuck, this lady knows what she's doing. But then Trish starts getting a little too cocky and gingerly leads Charlotte up the steps, only for the Queen to knock her into the steel face first. From then on, Charlotte begins to do to Trish what Brock Lesnar did to CM Punk 6 years earlier, and that is completely dismantle her. But fed up with Charlotte's mockery, Trish eventually rallies with several punches, but is tossed out of the ring by her younger opponent. Trish gets back into the ring after a near countout from the ref, and gets a second wind after she moves out of the way of a moonsault from Charlotte and starts lighting up the daughter of the Nature Boy with some of those sweet, sweet player chops, before giving Charlotte a Hurricane Rana and going for a pin, but the Queen kicks out. Charlotte then starts battering Trish's knee and goes for a figure four, but Trish counters and eventually flips the script for her own figure four that she then bridges into a figure eight, but fails to hold it for very long. Trish then goes for her own finisher, Stratification. Trish tries one more cover, but it isn't enough, and Charlotte kicks out. The Queen then goes for her own trump card and gives Trish the figure eight, leading to a tap out from the Canadian. A damn fine match for anyone, but an especially great performance for someone like Trish Stratus to go out on before retiring. And that's my list. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like it, share it with your friends, comment on it, and subscribe to my channel. This was my first video discussing wrestling, so I'd really appreciate some feedback on how I did. If you're new here, feel free to check out my other videos. I've mainly discussed comic movies and Star Wars, but I've also done videos about the Predator and Alien vs. Predator franchise, as well as videos discussing more down-to-earth films like Brookdale Station, Last Flag Flying, LBJ, All the Way, Vice, and W. Also, stay tuned for more wrestling videos, because next, I'm going to do a video discussing all of CM Punk's SummerSlam matches. That's going to be a lot of fun. Until then, have a great day, everyone. Wear a fucking mask, wash your hands, and stay safe out there. Woodstock,